right, so the last section in chapter 3, unit 3 is 3.2 part 2, how well the line fits the data. And today we're going to be talking about R squared, which is called the coefficient of determination, a very important sounding value, very I don't know, what, sci-fi or fantasy sounding? Like what somebody would name a sword? Here we go. So what is the standard deviation of the residuals? How do you calculate it and interpret it? We have this value called the standard deviation of the residuals. And the way it works, if we use a least squares regression line to predict the values of a response variable y from an explanatory variable x, the standard deviation of the residuals, which we generally call S, is given by this calculation. It's the square root of the sum of all the residuals squared divided by the number of data minus 2. I would write this down. This is, again, a formula you don't need to have memorized. It's in that formula packet that is in our supplemental materials. You'll never really have to calculate this on your own. Most often you'll be given it in computer output, just like we had in our warm-up, and you'll just need to interpret it. That's a lot more of what this class is about, much less about calculation. You will have to make some calculations, right? But our calculator will do the heavy lifting, and oftentimes you'll just be given computer output. Most of what this class is about is interpretation, being able to correctly interpret the data and computer output. So the most important part of this particular green box is this last part, how you interpret it. The standard deviation of the residuals is basically a typical prediction error, a typical residual. So you guys remember what a residual is? If you have a regression line, if you have a scatter plot, and then you have your LSR, your least squares regression through that, a residual is the vertical distance between the actual data and the regression line. So it's basically a prediction error, right? How far was the line from the data? So the standard deviation of the residuals, remember what a standard deviation is? It's just a typical deviation. So the standard deviation of the residuals is just a typical prediction error. All right, just go ahead and give me a green